Everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Toxitron Collection at G2 Universe Leader Class Grimlock. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? And now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have the Legacy Evolution logo at the bottom of the box. We have G2 Universe Grimlock in white text. We also do have a really cool workshop of Grimlock in both his robot and his T-Rex All-Moto. If we do look at the top of the box, we have another Legacy Evolution logo. And if we do turn to the side of the box, we have two really cool close-up artwork shots of Grimlock in both his robot and his T-Rex All-Moto. On the back of the box, the figure transforms in 23 steps. There's a product shot of him and his robot and his T-Rex All-Moto. And on the final side, we have half of the Legacy Evolution artwork. So if you do get another figure from this Toxitron collection, such as Toxitron himself, you can put both boxes together and complete the artwork. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. Here we have Grimlock in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with the head sculpt. We have some really nice silver for the entire helmet section, with some metallic blue for the visor, some really nice metallic blue for the entire chest, with some really cool venting detailing there, with some transparent orange plastic for this entire front chest panel piece here, with some really cool kind of sticker decal designs. They're not actual stickers. I think they're probably just made to resemble them. There's actually a sculpted in Autobot symbol kind of behind or through this panel there, which you can somewhat see. It's slightly covered there, but you can sort of see it. There's some really nice kind of bright mustard yellow for the entire shoulders and form of bicep, with some more for these back panels and some more really nice metallic blue for the little dino arms there, which you can kind of position however you wish. I'll cover that articulation for the panels and the dino arms a little bit later, after of course taking a look at the details. And there's some more of that metallic blue for these little claws where the wrists are, and there's some more black for the hands, and there's some more black for the top of the legs, and there's a really nice kind of bright maroon, almost pink for the waist and crotch, and of course the little hip skirt pieces there as well. We have some really cool kind of cheetah sort of tiger stripes there done in metallic blue, with the base color of the leg and foot mostly done in that bright yellow. And if we do look at the side profile, overall not looking too bad, pretty well compact and compressed, not much kibble or anything sticking out. And if we do look at the very back of the figure, overall waffling, there's really not that much empty gaps, even in the inside of the legs, which is typically where you see most of the kibble on figures, or most of the waffling on the figures. Overall really well filled in, not much gaps or kibble or panels or anything. There is these panels here, which those really don't bother me that much. We actually do have the entire dinosaur neck and head, but actually does tab into the back, so if you're worried about that kind of flopping or getting in the way, don't be. It's actually really well compressed and compact against the back of the figure. And I'm actually going to jump right into articulation. I'm actually going to start off with these back panels here, because you can actually position them and maneuver them a lot of different ways. So there is actually a hinge forward and back, also up and down. And these little dino arms, there's actually a ball joint at the base and sort of a hinge at the elbow. So you can really position these however you wish in some really cool dynamic poses. But as for the rest of the articulation, going back to the front, of course, the head can look up and down, tilt side to side, look left to right. The arms can move out and in, forward and back on clickety ratchets. There is also a bicep rotation and elbow bend on a single hinge past 90. There is also a wrist rotation, which is really good. There's also a full functioning waist rotation. Just move the arms that way to get some added clearance. This can rotate all the way around. The legs can kick forward, back, out to the side. There's also rotation at the top of the leg. There's a ratcheted knee bend and an ankle pivot. So really good articulation. One thing I really like is there's actually a bit of a filler piece of plastic, because there's not that gap there. I think that's a really nice touch. But quickly straightening him up, we can actually get into his accessories. Just let me quickly kind of put him back into a neutral pose like that. There we go. So as for his one accessory, he does come with that standard kind of glossy black rifle we've seen in the past, a very iconic weapon for Grimlock. It's actually a double barrel blaster, which both of these are blaster piece compatible and can be stored in his hand like that, with that post and port system, which I actually do have another complaint with this figure. The same one I've actually had with the Shatterglass Grimlock, is that he really should come with more accessories, because this is a Walmart exclusive and the Shatterglass one was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, and yet both the figures actually come with less accessories than the main lines. So he really should have come with like maybe a sword, maybe a blaster piece, just something extra, because they are exclusive. They really should not come with less. I do like the blaster, but it is actually rather bland. The Shatterglass Grimlock actually came with some really cool kind of orange little paint apps on the tips, pretty much where the barrels are. So maybe they could have put like some metallic blue there. That would have been a nice touch, because it is rather bland. But now for some comparisons, here he is with another Toxitron collection figure, that being G2 Jazz, which his review is coming very soon on the channel. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And for another comparison, actually a Grimlock comparison, since I don't have the original 86 Studio Series Grimlock, I actually do have the Legacy Evolution Core Class G1 Grimlock. But they look pretty cool side by side. And just putting them off to the side. For one final robot mode comparison, here he is with the mold mates, that being the Shatterglass Grimlock. I think they look super cool side by side mold-wise. They are the exact same thing, really just a matter of preference of which deco you prefer. Probably of the two, since I don't own the original, of the two, I definitely do prefer the Shatterglass release. That is just my opinion anyway. Let me know in the comments of all three variations or versions of this mold, which one do you like the most. I guess the 86 one could change my mind. I'm not really sure if I'm ever going to be able to get that figure because the aftermarket prices are insane. But of the two, this one I definitely do prefer. There is one major thing I actually prefer on the Toxitron one over the Shatterglass one, you might already be able to tell, is the claws. They actually did the claws on the Shatterglass release out of that kind of unfinished cheap gray plastic, which I really don't like. It would have been so much better if they made them out of like silver or like painted them silver or like white or something like that, because that just kind of ruins the whole look. This actually was made out of kind of a really nice metallic blue plastic, which looks so much better. So that's one major thing I prefer on the Toxitron release over the Shatterglass one, but they overall do look super cool side by side, and I will bring him out a little bit later in the review, of course, once he is transformed into his T-Rex alt mode. And that is pretty much it for this robot mode. Let's now get down to transformation. Now for transformation into his T-Rex alt mode, what you're going to do is fold in hands. Those will just soft click into place like that. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Then you're actually going to turn to the side of the arm. You're actually going to tab the form into the shoulder. There's a small tab pretty much where the elbow region is. That's just going to tab into place like that. There's also a secondary hinge. You're just going to hinge back the entire form to pretty much create this angle for the T-Rex mode leg. And you're going to do the exact same process on the other side. So of course, just tab the form into the shoulder using that tab at the elbow. And then of course, you can use that secondary hinge and that will just hinge back as well like that. Then you can actually hinge the arms up just to get some added clearance for the other areas of the transformation. We're actually going to flip to the very back of the figure. You can untab the entire head and neck of the T-Rex. There's a tab pretty much on the back of the head and there is a slot on the actual back of the figure. Then you can actually fold down the entire heel spur or the back of the foot there. Fold those down, and how those were tabbed in place, as you can see, there's a tab there and some slots right there. Then you're actually going to get these back panels here. Also fold these out as well. And then you can actually fold out these sort of tail halves or the halves of the tail for the T-Rex mode. So just hinge those out using that hinge there. Just fold this out like that. Fold this out like that. And as you can see, of course, there's several corresponding tabs and slots on the inside of the legs. There's also, of course, those same slots I actually mentioned before, and some tabs pretty much on the butt region of the figure. So you're just going to fold up this entire assembly like that. They'll just fold up into place and fold up into place like that. And then, of course, you can tab both tail halves together like that. You can actually flip it around, and of course this entire back tail section here is actually going to kind of fold over the front of the leg, fold that over, and of course just align all these tabs up and into place like that, and tab that in, and tab that into place. And there we have the tail all done. Then you're actually going to go to the front to get this entire front chest assembly here. Hinge this down. Of course, there is a tab there and a little slot or kind of a notch right there. And there's a new tab. And there's actually pretty much a slot at the bottom of the chest. And that's just going to align into place. And there's also some slots on the side using those same tabs. Of course, those will tab into place right there as well. So just align all of that up. That'll click into place. Then you can actually hinge the entire front leg down like that. And then you can actually fold the head in and then hinge the entire T-Rex head and neck down like that. Hinge the head down, and then of course there is these two side panels. You can just flip these forward. There is actually posts on one side and ports on the other side. Those will align up and plug into place like that. And there we have Grimlock in his T-Rex alt mode. Let's take a look at the details. Here we have Grimlock in his T-Rex alt mode. Let's take a look at the details. We have some really nice bright yellow for the entire helmet section or head section of the T-Rex. We have some really cool sharp teeth, also done in yellow with some really nice sculpted and nut and bolt detailing. With some metallic blue for the eyes, some really nice transparent orange for the entire neck region. With some really cool kind of mechanical details sculpted, and actually is pretty cool how you can sort of see through, kind of see into the figure and how it's like built and made. I think that's a pretty cool detail. There's some really nice kind of piping and wiring detailing sculpted in onto the side of the belly region or kind of the chest region of the the entire T-Rex. There's some more details on the front. Of course, we do have the little dino arms done in metallic blue as well, with the claws also done in metallic blue, with some really nice surface detailing, some really cool kind of gears and hinges sculpted in onto the side of the leg there, with the really cool kind of tiger stripes also done in metallic blue going down the back of the tail there. And I do have to say, as far as the tail goes, this is not that bad, because typically most of the time with Dinobots like Predacons, usually when they turn into some sort of a beast or kind of a dinosaur, usually they put like all the kibble, all the junk at the back where the tail is. So as far as tail goes, this actually does not look that bad. I've seen way worse with past Dinobots and Predacons, so that's pretty good to see there. But overall, detail wise, very impressed, looks super cool. As far as the articulation goes, most of it I've pretty much already covered, like the entire, T-Rex legs. They're actually the robot mode arms, so pretty much all the articulation stays the same. Of course, you do lose the wrist rotation because the hands are folded in. I guess you can say, of course, there is some claw articulation. The claws can, of course, move up and down. And I guess the only other really added areas, because, of course, I already did cover the little dino arms. Of course, there is a hinge at the elbow and a ball joint at the base, but the only other area I really haven't covered is the head. So, of course, the mouth can open and close, and the neck can actually move side to side. That's really the only area I've actually never shown. But again, as I said before, the entire T-Rex mode legs were the remote arms, so all the articulation you've pretty much seen before stays the same in this mode. So pretty well posable. You can pull off some really cool kind of, running charging poses. So make sure you don't skip the beginning intro with all my pictures, kind of the picture slide, because I actually pulled off some really fun poses with this guy. But now for accessory storage, I actually really also won't be covering that because it's not the greatest. I've actually shown it before with the Shatterglass release, and it's just not that good. But what you can do is, if you want, so you can actually grab the entire, big double-barreled rifle, and you can actually store it pretty much where the tail is. I'm not going to show it because I really don't think anyone likes it. If you do, of course, that's fine. You can do that if you want to. It just never really looks that good because the entire kind of front barrel section sort of sticks out, and it just never looks that good. I can cut some slack on the figure's accessory storage because it's a T-Rex, so there's really not that many places you can store a huge, double-barrel blaster. If it was like a car or a plane, that would be a lot easier to store, so I can cut some slack on that. But, getting into some comparisons, here he is with the Legacy Evolution Core Class Grimlock, and I think they look pretty cute side by side, but that looks pretty cool. And for one final comparison, a mold comparison, here is with the Shatterglass Grimlock. And again, really just a matter of preference of which deco you prefer. I still do prefer the Shatterglass one. Again, just those claws would have made the world of difference, but they look really, really cool side by side. And that is pretty much it for comparisons and this T-Rex alt mode. Let's now get down to reverse transformation. So now for reverse transformation, what you're going to do is flip out the hands like that, and those will just soft click into place like that. You're going to flip out the hands, those will just soft click into place. Then you're actually going to pretty much bend at this elbow, just a section right here, just hinge this forward like that. And then there is actually a secondary tap that's actually going to tab into the shoulder like that. So just to line that up, and that will click into place like that. So pretty much a bend at the elbow, and that will just click into place, kind of locking in the arm like that. So there we have the arms all done. And you're actually going to get this entire head and neck region, just hinge this up and fold that back like that. Then you're actually going to split at these front panels here, so just kind of get your nail in there, split these down the middle, and hinge these panels all the way back. And how these were tabbed into places, there is 2 posts on this side and corresponding ports on the other side. Then you're actually going to get this entire head region here, hinge this entire section up, and then you're actually going to get this entire pretty much stomach region. You're going to disconnect that entire section from the tail, and this entire section will fold up. As you can see, there's this entire slot section, and there is a tab section that's just going to tab into place, and of course there's that same connection on the other side of the chest panel. And then you're going to flip to the very front of the figure. You're actually going to open up these panels here of the tail, open these up, and you're going to fold in the tail halves like that, fold in the tail halves, and then you can pretty much get this entire tail region here, hinge this entire section out and down, and pretty much extend the legs. So then you can actually split the tail in half and straighten up the leg. Then you can actually fold these panels in to form the back of the leg, fold them in, and then you can actually flip out the heel spur, and there's a little slot there and a tab there, and that'll just tab into place like that, and then of course you can just quickly straighten up the figure like that. And then there is just a few more steps to go. You can actually tab in the entire head and neck. There's a slot there and a tab there. That's just going to tab into place. And the entire sort of back panels, of course, you can really position these however you want. You can have them a bit more collapsed, a bit more spread out. I kind of prefer kind of the mid region where they're just slightly angled out like that. But that is pretty much it for reverse transformation. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. So now for my final thoughts on the Transformers Legacy Evolution Toxitron Collection G2 Universe Leader Class Grimlock. I think overall this is a really good repaint. Definitely out of the entire Toxitron collection, this is probably one of the highlights. And that's kind of the case for most of these Walmart and kind of sublines, a part of the Transformers line or brand. Typically they do sublines, and yes, of course, most of them are repaints or retools. And there's a few that you could probably skip on, and there's a few that are kind of the standouts and the highlights out of this collection. I would definitely say Grimlock is probably the standout because I think the mold is amazing. I'm pretty sure the original 86 Grimlock has probably been regarded as one of the best Studio Series figures of all time, probably next to the 86 Hot Rod as well. It's a really good mold and a really good figure. I still do have some complaints. I actually never did own the original 86 Grimlock, so I really can't say which one's my favorite at this point. Of all three of the two I own, I probably do prefer the Shattered Glass deco or release of this mold, but there is actually a few things I think they did better on this release than the Shattered Glass one. One really good example is actually the claws. They're kind of the nails or the feet of the T-Rex alt mode. They actually done them out of this really nice kind of metallic blue plastic. I think that looks really good. And there was one thing I really didn't like on the Shattered Glass releases. Overall, I do like the deco, but the claws, they actually made them or kind of use that kind of unfinished gray, cheap looking plastic for the claws. It looked really unfinished and ugly. So that was one thing I just could not get past in the Shattered Glass release. And I'm really glad they didn't do that same thing with this one. So that's one thing that I definitely improved on this release over the last one. As far as accessories go, they're the exact same ones that came with the Shattered Glass one. That kind of double barrel blaster, a very iconic classic weapon for Grimlock. We've seen it countless times from past figures and appearances in TV shows. I do quite like it. I probably do like the deco or kind of the details and design of the Shattered Glass one over this one, because this one is just glossy black. It's a bit boring and bland. I do like the sculpt work, but I actually kind of like the little orange details and kind of paint apps on the ends or the barrels on the Shattered Glass release. I think that was a nice touch. So maybe they could have added like some metallic blue or maybe some more yellow on the blaster. That would have been a nice touch. Also, they are blaster piece compatible. The two barrels are blaster piece compatible, in case you're wondering. And I do have a complaint as far as accessories go. It's actually the exact same complaint I had with the Shattered Glass release. If you watch that review, you pretty much, I think you probably know what I'm about to say and talk about, is I really never understood why the exclusive releases of this mold actually have less accessories than the mainline, you know, the traditional release of this mold, the one you can pretty much get anywhere, you know, Amazon, Target, Hasbro, Pulse, of course, when it was released. Right now, it's a really hard to come by figure, but when the original 86 Grimlock was released, it was a pretty easy figure to get because it was mainline. But these two other redecos or releases, the Walmart and the Hasbro Pulse exclusive, you know, they're exclusive. They're pretty hard to come by. They will probably get discontinued. They probably won't make that many more of them. They probably won't last that much longer. So I really think they probably should have included another accessory. I actually had several ideas. They could have maybe included a sword, because that's one other iconic weapon for Grimlock that unfortunately none of the three versions or variations have actually included a sword so far. So I think that would be a pretty perfect opportunity to include a sword with either this one or the Shattered Glass one. They also could have included maybe some new blaster pieces, because he actually does have that huge double barrel blaster. I think that'd be a really cool kind of a companion accessory to add to that weapon. They could also include maybe like a fire blaster piece to actually attach into his mouth, because his mouth is actually blaster piece compatible in the T-Rex alt mode. That's another really good opportunity. The original two accessories that came with the 86 Grimlock, of course, were that same double barrel blaster, but also there was a non-transformable wheelie. I never owned that figure, so I really cannot judge whether I like that piece or not. It was kind of a display piece. You could actually attach it onto his shoulder, or you could actually ride on pretty much the back or the neck region of the T-Rex mode. I thought that was actually kind of a good idea. Unfortunately, it was very stock. It couldn't transform, very little articulation. It was pretty much a display piece, which some people liked, some people didn't like. I can fully understand why people didn't like it. But actually, since then, they did make a core class release of wheelie that does transform, that has better articulation. So that's another really good opportunity. Maybe if they wanted to increase the price of these two figures, the Shattered Glass and the Toxitron one, by a few dollars, they could have included the mainline or the core class release of wheelie that does transform, and they could have put it in the Toxitron deco and the Shattered Glass deco. And of course, they could have that same functionality where you can actually store on the shoulder and on the neck region of the T-Rex. And I'm pretty sure with the non-transformable one and the core class one, they were relatively relatively the same size. Of course, one was far more articulated and had far more details than the other, but overall, the size-wise, they were pretty much the same thing, so I definitely think they could have done that. What I'm really trying to get to is I think there was a lot of options and a lot of opportunities to include something more for this figure, but they did not take any. As far as transformation goes and the molding goes, of course, the exact same molding really is just a preference of which deco you prefer. Probably of the three so far, again, I don't own the original. I probably do like the Shatterglass release the most, but as I mentioned before, there are a few things that I probably do prefer on this Toxitron one over that one. Maybe someday I'll actually get the 86 release. It's just like double and triple of the retail price on the aftermarket, so probably not anytime soon, unless I ever maybe find it loose or actually new for a really good deal, but I'm not spending, $150 for a leader class figure. I'd really like to own it, just not now. And as far as transformation goes, it's the exact same as the previous two releases of this mold. If this is your first time with this mold, it's actually very involving. I really wouldn't say it's, complex or hard. It is a leader class figure, so do keep that in mind, of course. It is more steps. It is quite involving, but I really wouldn't say it's like hard or complex or annoying. It's actually pretty fun to transform back and forth. As far as his T-Rex alt mode goes, I actually really do like it. It's very big. This is actually one of the leaders that I'm always surprised by about how massive it is, because, leaders have definitely shrunken in size over the years. Like if you do get like a leader class from like maybe the Titans Return line or the Combiner Wars line, you can definitely see a pretty big change between that leader and, let's say, Earthrise Optimus Prime, because he's technically classified as a leader. So there has been a change, but he's actually pretty decent in size for a leader class figure, so that's really good to see. I do love the transparent orange at his neck and all the really cool kind of tiger metallic blue stripes across the entire figure, and the really bright, pretty much eye-burning yellow for the entire figure. It's such a crazy deco, but it just really works for me. Definitely an acquired taste. I don't think everyone is really gonna like this figure. I think it's probably going to be for a specific, kind of type of collector. I don't think everyone's gonna really like this. It's gonna be kind of a niche type figure, where it works for some people, not for others. I actually think it looks pretty cool. It will definitely stand out in my collection. Let me know your thoughts on this figure in the comment section down below. Will you be picking this up or will you be passing on it? I do hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.